Hey everybody, Gary Fong here. I promised that I will get to the part 4 of the CIA document. I wanted to come on here really quick because I have a lot of friends at the moment through all of this tumultuous circumstances that we are going into, feeling completely out of control and completely high levels of stress and anxiety, and completely understandable because everything that we have come to rely on, traditions like Thanksgiving, are all being torn away, or the ability to earn a good wage, or the ability to, have the ability to even buy food, could not be more stressful. So I wanted to address that by giving you a story about a different level of awareness that comes to us through a very, very ancient religion called Manichaeism. Wouldn't call it ancient because it was Middle Ages. In fact, Manichaeism was the leading religion in the world in the Middle Ages. Now, by the way, it was dwarfing Christianity. So why have you not heard about it? You haven't heard about it because the Tang dynasty ordered all of the monasteristic monks to be murdered, all the temples to be burned, and all of the scripture to be burned. Same thing that happened in Europe. It was the Emperor Theodosius who had a westward expansion of Christianity, and there was the growth of Manichaeism, which started out in Iran, and it was St. Augustine, working with Theodosius, who commanded that all of the monarchistic popes, palaces, popes were to be murdered. Literally, it was a law to murder the popes. What are they called? The priests, monarchistic priests. You can look this up. There's very not a lot of information. A lot of it is covered up because there's reasons for that. I will get to that. But those reasons that made it a powerful religion, that gave people so much happiness in the Middle Ages, to be completely replaced by this mindset that has plagued us for ever since St. Augustine converted into, from a monachaist. He was born a practicing monachaist until he was dissed at a temple and denied leadership, and then he switched to Christianity, and then, I don't know if he had a thing against it. He certainly did a really good job in not only destroying Manichaeism, but he also did a really good job in destroying the original tenets of Christianity. So I'll go into this, and then hopefully you can see how this all applies to today and why I'm a happy person. Not a deliriously happy person, not someone who, anyway, I'm happy for a reason, and I hope I can spread this reason to you as well. So the prophet Mani, I think he was born around 260 AD, was visited by a spirit that looked exactly like him. In fact, he called him the twin. He wrote a book about his experience called the Book of Thomas. Those of you who are modern biblical scholars will go, my gosh, the Book of Thomas sounds very familiar. Well, the Book of Thomas was the one missing book in the published version of the King James Bible that was the only Gnostic testimony of Christ. It was also the only testimony that was written contemporaneously in his presence. Thomas was in his presence. And this was all completely hidden from the original book. And biblical scholars were like going, there seems to be something missing because things keep referring to this other missing chunk, and they couldn't figure out what it was. I think right around 1940, when the Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered, they found the Book of Thomas. And the Book of Thomas was the actual speakings, contemporaneous recording of what Jesus actually said. Unlike the other books, which were written hundreds of years by authors, hundreds of years after the death of Jesus, the Book of Thomas was actually written while he was there. And when you read it, and I've read it, it's an absolutely delightful book, which coincides exactly, of all crazy things, to the book of Thomas in Manichaeism. Now, Thomas means twin. So maybe it's a coincidence or whatever, but it just basically means twin. And what does the book say? I'll first explain it in how Mani, his actual pronunciation is Manchi, but he was an Iranian prophet. I'll explain it as he explained it. He said that at any split second, you can recognize that you are a collection of light particles, or you can shift your awareness to the fact that you are a three-dimensional body. And when you shift your attention to your three-dimensional body, then you descend into ego and greed. And best to live in the practice of having the awareness that you're merely light particles of the same composition as the universe. Now, why is that important? Well, because when we pay attention to our physical body, we are relying on a very, 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 very limited awareness. Because after all, how do we perceive the world? Through our eyes, through our ears, through our nose, our taste, and our sense of touch. Those five senses. Those five senses only exist to protect our physical bodies from harm. If I see a big boulder rolling down a hill, I run for cover. If I hear gunshots, I duck behind a dumpster. If I touch a door and it's hot, I'm taught that there's a fire on the other side, don't go through. If I smell smoke, I get out of the building. If I taste something that smells like dog poo, then I don't eat it. Those just protect our three-dimensional body, this thing. But to think that our awareness of what we are a part of comes from these things is completely limiting. Our ears can only hear between 20 and 20,000 hertz. Our eyes cannot see into the infrared or up into the ultraviolet. We can't hear a dog whistle, but the dog can. If we walked into a stalagmite-covered cave, we would bang into everything, but a bat would be able to fly through that thing at high speeds, deftly dodging every single one of those stalagmites, and is blind in that darkness, but can emit an echo that can tell him the exact shape and size of everything that he's about to hit. So they have senses we don't have. For us to have the pomposity to think that we know it all because we heard it. We heard it on CNN. We heard it on Fox News. We saw my dentist say that his uncle had someone who was inside Area 51, whatever. To think that we have that kind of awareness, we don't. So the first part of all of this is just really having humility. When I hear, a really great violinist, I know that they're in a universe that I'm not. Or I hear just like Lenny Krupa or a drummer that just exists on a plane that I do not. We have all of these terminology to understand that there's places that we can't go. But the beautiful thing about what Mani taught was that you can go anywhere if you're a light particle. And that is basically what has been plaguing us for the last 2,000 years. The last 2,000 years was called the Age of Pisces, and otherwise known as the Age of the Patriarch. The Age of Pisces is an age where there was very, very little star density above us. And when I say above us, what I'm saying is that the Earth spins one rotation per day. So it's spinning really quickly in the grand scheme of things. Like a top, when it's spinning, it will do a slow circle because it's not a perfect sphere. That circle makes one precession every roughly 24,000 years, slicing that into 12 different segments that are identified by the constellations. When I say we're in the Age of Aquarius now, we were in the Age of Pisces, that has nothing to do with astrology. It merely has something to do with the pie of the Earth. It's basically if you stuck a toothpick through the Earth and then what does the top of the toothpick point at? Or in other words, if I were standing on the North Pole looking straight up, what would I see? Between 0 and 2012, you would see a very vast large constellation of very little star density. That was called the Age of Pisces. As we started to spin and move into the Age of Aquarius, now we are completely covered with massive star energy. There's nebulas, supernovas, black holes, all kinds of heavy gravitational forces that are coming down on us that didn't exist before. Now, mankind has a yearning for the truth. We seek for the truth. In the absence of any really good guidance from the universe, we then sought the advice of gurus like Tony Robbins, like Jay Shetty, like Jerry Falwell, like the popes, like Joseph Smith of the Mormon Church, because we were told and then heard to believe that those people have access to knowledge that we as mere mortals don't. So then we followed gurus. And that happened back then. Also, what wound up happening when we went into these guru containers, we then became identified with them. So I'm a Lutheran, you are Episcopalian, therefore we're just not going to get along. Or you're a Trumpy, you're a never Trumpy. Or if we go to Thanksgiving dinner, the mashed potatoes are going to be flying, right? So those were all containers that we defined ourselves by what we were. And we also had in the last 2,000 years, we were told by patriarchs, university heads, CEOs of large corporations that if you study and you work hard in school, you will then be successful. So all these kids went and had university degrees, hoping to get higher paying jobs. What they wound up with was $80,000 in student debt, and they're working as servers. So the old cause and effect, the old formulas that used to work in the Age of Pisces from 0 to 2012 don't work anymore. As we go into Aquarius, in fact, everything that we try to equate winds up making no sense. And that's the beautiful part of Aquarius. Aquarius is a complete change. And the way to navigate through this and to find happiness and peace in all of it is to understand that you can't expect anything to be the way it was because we are in a new astrological age. Here's an example. The age before Pisces was the age of Aries. And the age of Aries was an age of what they call multitheism. There were multiple gods, god of water, god of sun, Apollo. There was Icarus, who flew too close to the sun because he had wings made out of wax, and he flew so close to the sun that, we all look at it as silly now, right? But that was called polytheism. There'd probably be a god of the lottery today if polytheism still existed. But it stopped around the year 0 when these initiates into a new age, such as Jesus or Muhammad, said, but there is one God. And that was the part that was really cool, is that they were trying to get mankind to understand that though we are foreign on this planet, they're trying to get mankind to understand that we are literally of the universe, but in stepwise things. So you don't start them with 10 gods and now you just can't say you are God, which is kind of where we're going into Aquarius, in terms of an omniscient ability to observe what's happening in the universe. But in Pisces, it was all about the monotheism. And, so when you look at Jesus's teachings and everything like that there is just, but one God. And I just find it so interesting that people get a number of things wrong. Like, the primary symbol of Christianity, of course, is the cross. The secondary symbol is the fish. And, it's I've always asked my biblical friends, why is it a fish? And they say, well, it was in Matthew 10:17 or whatever the number is. Jesus said, I will teach you to be fishers among men. And, it's cute because I will see posts from my devout friends fishing on a lake, and they will say, they'll quote the scripture and they'll say, I will teach you to be fishers among men. So Jesus came to this earth to teach you how to fish. But the Japanese, he kind of left out, and they became the greatest fishermen. That's not really what happened. The reason why the secondary symbol is the fish is because Jesus was an initiate in the age of Pisces. Pisces being about monotheism. Another amazing initiate in the first part of the Age of Aquarius was a prophet named Mani. And he was the founder of a religion called Manichaeism. Manichaeism, as I said, was the leading religion in the world in the Middle Ages. And you haven't heard about it because it literally all got completely wiped out. I can tell you the story about in China, it was the Tang dynasty that ordered all the monks killed, all the palaces burned, all the scriptures burned. In Europe, it was St. Augustine, who originally was born a Manichaeist, quite devout Manichaeist, and he tried to assume a leadership role in the monotheistic temple and was refused, and therefore became a Christian, and therefore teamed up with Theodosius, the Roman emperor, to have all of the Manichaeists killed, their temples burned, and their scriptures burned. So, it wasn't there, don't know his motives for doing that, but it exists to this day, the persecution against Manichaeism. So what is Manichaeism? And why is the persecution continuing to this day? I will get to that, I hope. I go on tangents like crazy when I do these unscripted videos. I had to hop on here because I'm feeling a lot of my friends becoming really sad. And they're like going, Gary, why are you so happy? Are you weird? Why are you always, so at peace with how everything is? Why do you have such a laissez-faire attitude about what's going on? And I'm going to try to hopefully get you there through the explanation of the teachings of not only Manichaeism, but also the teachings of Jesus in the lost scripture, the Book of Thomas, that was uncovered, I think it was around 1943, among the Dead Sea Scrolls. And it was the only Gnostic, self-aware gospel in the Bible, got excluded, and it was the only one that was written by a scribe who was there with Jesus. It was a contemporaneous recording of his sayings. And his sayings, if you read the Book of Thomas, it's out there on the internet, you will see that it is remarkably like a book written by Mani from Persia, who wrote a book called the Book of Thomas. He wrote it called the Book of Thomas because the spirit who appeared before him was his twin. And many of you may not know this, but the word Thomas actually means twin. In these books, they describe this awareness. You can either be aware that you are light particles, or you can delve into the awareness of the three-dimensional body, which then goes you into the shadow awareness, the shadow being of ego and greed. Now, why do we call this the shadow being? Well, it's because, people go, oh, that's your shadow self. And I hear, mystics or teachers of yoga say, you don't want to go into your shadow self. That's not the mean person that's going to, I'm going to be in the shadow. All that means is that your physical body can cast a shadow. That's all it means. As light particles, we do not cast shadows. We are not also encased in this compressed form of energy. Energy and mass are interchangeable. Einstein came up with the equation, E equals mc squared, which means that any mass, energy is equal to the mass of something times the speed of light again, which is massive. So if I took this thing and made it no more, but just turned it into kilocalories of energy, not only would I not be here, but probably the whole mountaintop that I live on. If I, at 190 pounds, completely converted from energy to mass, would probably take out all of North America, because an atomic bomb just has a small number of these plutonium pellets, and look what it does to in nuclear bomb testings or in nuclear reactors. Massive amounts of energy that comes from mass. So you have to respect that this is mass. You have to respect that there's a lot of it here. But to, at any moment, worship the three-dimensionality of this body, then it's just like, oh, my six-pack, and oh, my, what kind of Instagram influencer, what kind of, round ass do I don't know, just whatever. When you go into that, then you go into a very cause and effect type of left brain mentality. If I do this, I will get more followers. If I go to university, I will get a higher paying job. If I get a Bowflex, I'll pick up more chicks. All of those things are great for consumerism and marketing, but they do nothing for your overall state of well-being and happiness. The well-being and happiness gives you the comfort of knowing that you are merely a collection of light particles, just like everything else in the universe. We're all just energy. We're all just electricity. And to prove that, if I were to suddenly expire, die, then this body right here, which has a pacemaker that automatically beats the heart, it has lungs that breathe without thinking, it has all these really amazing things that I can do without knowing how it's done, nerve connections, muscle contraction, all of these things that I have no idea how it's done. If my light energy, my electricity leaves this, then I completely crumble and turn into decay. So that's the proof that we are just electrical light beings. And once we understand that we are electrical light beings, then we understand that the universe vibrates at a higher level than anything synthetic. People are so afraid of, this or that, or 5G. Look, there's a lot to be afraid of with 5G, and I've explained it when I've done my public speeches, that there's really not a lot to be afraid of with 5G because it's never going to work. 5G is an extremely brittle technology. It requires complete implementation, continuous coverage. That's why they need 3 per every city block on the lampposts, because it needs continuous coverage for the 2 main value propositions of 5G, which is driverless cars and remote surgery. The signal can be interrupted by a flock of seagulls, a heavy downpour of rain, cypress trees in the way. That's why the towers are so tall. So, with regards to being worried about 5G, with regards to being worried about this mRNA vaccine that's going to come in, and by the way, with my degree in pharmacology, I understand how RNA transcription works. To think that first of all, it normally takes a decade to create a vaccine. To think that we could then, so we don't know how exactly to fight a certain virus by putting a deadened copy of that virus so that our own antibodies can strengthen up against it and form an immunity. To think that we can take the human DNA, which they now have a lot of it, thanks to all of you who went to 24andme.com and voluntarily submitted your own DNA, which then they can find you. But they have a lot of that information now with which they can synthesize an RNA strand, because that's all the Moderna vaccine is. It's an mRNA strand that literally will insert into your genome, and guess what? Now you become a genetically modified human being. Does that have the ability to then use the transcriptase, synthesize a protein, which would then go out and bust open the protein cap that surrounds the coronavirus molecule, and therefore expose that strand so that the body can take it? Because it's that lipid capsule, that one that you see in the pictures, which cracks me up. You're seeing scanning electron images of a virus with these red, mean spikes coming out of it. Scanning electron microscopes don't record in color. The way scanning electron microscopes work is that they have to freeze everything so it doesn't move, and then there's a scanner that goes down just like a bat. It kind of echoes the distance, and it stitches an image oblivious to color. Somebody went in and made those little spikes red so that they would scare you. I'm getting completely off topic here because that's how fast the information comes in when I meditate. But so what happens is to think that modifying your DNA is going to stop a virus. It does nothing but make you a genetically modified human being. So just like you'd be a GMO, GMH, eating GMO food. That's kind of the idea. That winds up happening. So then we come into, all of the fear of, oh, well, if I get injected, if I get this, if I'm exposed to this and all that. What I have to remind you is this: nothing that man makes can vibrate higher than the universe. Nothing man makes can vibrate higher than the universe. This is a shungite plate. Okay, so this is a shungite necklace, and this is my universal charger. This thing, because it comes from nature, because it oscillates in a counterspin, it's what I call, it defeats the angry wave of synthetics. Anything that is in nature will out-vibrate, it will vibrate higher and diffuse anything synthetic. You've seen it happen over and over and over again. Like Jeff Goldblum says in Jurassic Park, nature finds a way. Synthetics are what afflicts us. Anything that man touches dies. Here's an example. Look at my place. The floors are made out of wood. Those used to be beautiful trees that created a beautiful shade for deer to graze underneath and eat the lovely soft grass underneath. Converting millions of pounds of carbon dioxide into fresh oxygen in these beautiful forests. Died so that it could be a floor. The leather seat in your car was a cow grazing out in a meadow, but man decided that he wanted that skin to be on my chair. So everything that man touches dies, because everything that man makes is a synthetic, which spins at a lower vibrational energy than the universe does, and also spins backwards. So this is why we have, the big pharma companies. I mean, I could not understand why the hell I wound up with a pharmacology degree, because everything they were teaching us was just like, we are going to fix something by doing this. One of them that we learned was hypertension medicine. We are going to lower the number on the sphygmometer by increasing the size of the veins, vasodilators. So it's like taking a bicycle tire and just say, you know what? Pressure's too high at 50 psi. Let's make the tire bigger. It worked. Now we're down to 40 psi. So you could have measurable results. You're like, dude, your blood pressure's too high. Well, yeah, I'm stressed because of synthetic influences. Every 30 days, I've got to pay the mortgage. A deer doesn't know when it's the end of the month, right? The deer is not of the world. The deer is of the earth. So, but what we did in pharmaceuticals was we found one thing that we could measure: blood pressure. It's down. Who knows what the hell happened to your body when you expanded everything? Were you like letting clots go free so that they could create, a stroke? Were we expanding these things so that we could put stress on the already thin tissue and create an aneurysm? Those were, that's why we do testing. That's why we do 3 phases of testing, is to find out what the side effects are. What I got out of that entire experience is that what makes man sick is synthetics. What makes animals sick and die is synthetic. Anything man-made makes people sick or die. And yet we use pharmacology to try to fix those things that made man sick in the first place, by using synthesized compounds. So what I'm trying to say is, as we get into Aquarius, all of this dissolves. You will find more alignment with nature. You will find more alignment with getting rid of societal expectations. Institutions will dissolve as we go further into Aquarius. Money and governments will no longer exist. They never belonged here anyway. Federal Reserve banks, fiat currencies, things like that. Fiat currencies is just like people go, oh, George Soros wants to be rich, or Bill Gates wants to be more rich. These guys don't need more money. They print money. They print money so that they can find ways to control you. But nothing man can do can come to the vibrational power of the universe once you know how to join it. You guys know the fictional monster, the vampire, right? Lurks in the shadows, afraid of the light, and drinks blood. Drinks blood. So what are these things, when people said, oh, we're going to have to lock down for that first lockdown in March, the thing they should have done was turn off the internet, because nobody knew about so many of the things until after March. This is what I'm talking about. The old Pisceans, the patriarch, the old guard, the ones that said that we are defined by labels like, I'm a billionaire, I'm a celebrity, I'm a president. All of those definitions wind up hurting us when we try to adhere to definitions, to cause and effect. The better thing to do right now is to completely let go of information that comes in through our ears and eyes, let all of our awareness come in through our own pineal gland, that is able to pick up intense amount of information from the new universal light energy, because we have moved into a very clusterous, very, very highly dense energetic level of star energy above the earth. And once we're able to do that, then guess what? All of the knowledge comes from within, not from Fox News, not from CNN, not from whatever you saw on that last scary post that was engineered, as explained in that movie Social Dilemma, to put you into battle mode, put you into fear mode, causing dissension, upset, stress, anxiety. None of that has to be here if you understand that what Jesus said in his Book of Thomas was taken away around the time of our lovely friend St. Augustine. By the way, this is really interesting. So how I know all this stuff, do you read all day long? And no, I don't. My friends know that I'll just get this, what was that? And then I'll start coming up with things and talking about things, and then I'll look them up on the internet, and lo and behold, there they are. I wrote a movie called The Man from Torred, and basically I just kind of sat around in the space and just said, okay, here I am in 1954 in Tokyo, Japan. This guy walks in and no one knows his passport and all this. It's based on true stories. It was brought to me by a producer who wanted to find a writer who could tackle it. And it's very interesting because, I just kind of sat there and watched what happened. And what wound up happening was there were a lot of really interesting things. Like, for example, one of the characters was Professor Charles E. Maine. These names appear at the same time. When I write a movie, and Doug, who works with me on movies, knows that I do that. He goes, well, what's going to happen in that scene? I said, I don't know. I'm just going to go visit it. And so I'll literally go there, like virtual reality, and I'll just sit around and I'll watch everybody do their things. Oh, that guy's name is August Frank. That's really interesting. And so August Frank, the antagonist, becomes St. Augustine. This is how I learned so much about St. Augustine and the Franks and Charlemagne, Charles E. Maine, Charlemagne. So all of these pieces start to fit together. Why was it Andorra? Andorra is where the procession of Manichaeism stopped with the forces that were loyal to St. Augustine and the Emperor Theodosius. So all of these things were revealed when I wrote this movie, The Man from Torred. Incidentally, and I'm sure you will see this movie because it's a fantastic movie, you will understand why United States bombed Hiroshima and Nagasaki 3 days apart rather than take out Tokyo. There's a very strategic reason why. And it has to do for the same reason that, not known to many, but the word Andorra is actually French for golden. Andorra, or aura is gold, and golden of gold. And the other thing, too, is there's only 4 mined gold coins in the world. There is the Canadian maple leaf, the Liberty Eagle, United States Liberty Eagle, the South African Krugerrand, and the Andorran dinar. Now, the Andorran dinar is 10 times more pure than any other gold on the earth. Interesting enough, it's one of the few municipalities in the entire globe. There is Vatican City, there's Monaco, there's London City inside London, and there's Washington, D.C., and then there is Andorra. So we wonder why that all is. That's all explained in the movie Man from Torrid. If you guys are feeling anxiety, all I can say is the way that you will learn to escape it, whether you have to be caged in a concentration camp in order to do it, is you will learn to meditate. When you do that, you will become in sync with the vibrational energy of the universe. Nothing can touch you because anything that you fear is man-made, synthesized, as is the emotion of fear. Okay, gotta go. Leave comments below. Hope this helps.